Hey, everybody, excited to be with you again. We continue to amplify the stories of those who are reimagining and reshaping the landscape of golf, not just today, but in the foreseeable future. We really have enjoyed our time with the Advocates Professional Golf Association Tour, otherwise known as the APGA. And that trend doesn't stop today. We are going to introduce you to one of the tour stars right now, really on the cusp of a breakout. Today we have Marcus Byrd. Marcus is a member of the APGA Tour and the PGA Americas Tour. Marcus, welcome to the Tee to Green Golf Podcast. Listen, we know that your time is sensitive. We see you out there on the course grinding, so we're happy to have you here in your space.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Victor. Excited to do this and was looking forward to it for the last couple of weeks. So excited we were able to get it done.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listen, we're going to talk. You have really had an amazing relationship with golf, and I'm sure that our audience is going to really appreciate it, particularly from the vantage point that I've prepared and studied it leading up today. But when we think about that history with golf, where are the origins? Where did it begin? You know, resident of the DMV, the DC area. Talk to us about your start.
Yeah, so I grew up Southeast DC, partially, and then Temple Hills, Maryland, born and raised. I grew up playing a course called Langston in Northeast DC, right off Benning Road. And it was a predominantly African American place. My dad and his buddies used to go out there a couple days out the week and play. It was something that me and my dad could do together. That's just kind of how it got started for me. And then I just tended to gravitate to it a little more. I was a huge basketball fan, still am a huge basketball fan growing up. And I just kind of fell in love with the game and enjoyed the process of it, enjoyed the fact that I could work by myself and continue to get better. And I think that kind of propelled me to get to where I am now.
Yeah, well, listen, it worked, and you know, being a huge University of Kentucky fan, I know that John Wall was canvassing that DC area during the early years for you. But when you think about the time with your dad, those early days that ultimately led you to Middle Tennessee State, talk to us about the repetitiveness of being introduced to the game, your dad taking you out, and generally speaking, there's a moment where that repetition clicks within you, and ultimately you said, "Hey, I want to take this on more than any other sport that I've been introduced to." Take us through that for yourself.
Yeah, so I kind of started playing just stuff like the first tee and little junior stuff in events that they had up at Langston. That's kind of how I got started with the game. And I was just always a natural competitor. I loved to compete, whatever sport it was. I mean, I tried to play any and everything my parents would sign me up for growing up. So when I started playing more golf, it was just something that I could like kind of do on my own and continue to get better. And I can hit as many golf balls as I want, practice as much as I want. I think that was the beauty of growing up at Langston as well. They had an amazing junior program, and there were a bunch of other juniors that looked like me that I was able to practice and play with every day. So that kind of what got me started. And then I started getting lessons from a guy named Terry Schaefer. Growing up, he was my coach from probably what 7 years old till I was about, I would say 19, 20 maybe. We worked together all the time, and he was just such a kind of an inspiration for me, helping me believe that I was a good player. And he kind of got me, you know, getting the golf ball a little more solid and started being able to control my golf ball better. And I just kind of got the itch for it. And then my dad did the best that he could, signing me up for junior events and just started to really, my game started to blossom at a young age. I'd say from about 7 to about 12 was just like a pretty substantial leap for me when it came to my talent and competitive golfness. And then 13, started playing in some Maryland junior stuff and started competing. I won the Maryland junior for the 13 under division when I was 13. And then when I turned 14, I finished second in the Maryland State High School Championship.
Mm.
And that's when my dad was kind of like, hey, we might want to make a decision here on what you might want to focus on. And it was a no-brainer for me. I mean, I was a 5'1", 5'2" kid my freshman year of high school. So, basketball was obviously my passion, but I definitely had a lot more upside when it came to golf at that moment in time. So that was kind of what led me to focusing more on that. And then my sophomore year, actually, I ended up moving to Atlanta, Georgia, and
Okay.
that's where everything kind of took off for me. My first year there, I won the Georgia State Junior Championship, which I had no idea how massive of an event that was. I started getting a
Mhm.
bunch of college offers and started getting invited to go play in some of the biggest tournaments in the country. And that's when I kind of realized like I'm really good at this game and I have potential to take it to that next level. And I just kept sticking with it, man. I loved the grind. I loved the process. I trusted the people that were around me, and that's what kind of eventually led me to going to play golf in college and then obviously professionally now.
Marcus, I love that, and there's so much there, and I want to be considerate of time. But one of the things that I think is powerful, and you said it, we've talked about it in corporate America for maybe the last 10 to 20 years, and that is representation matters. Those of us, domestically, we understand the penetration and the density of communities of color, people of color, specifically African American and Black Americans, not just in the DMV area, but then when you transition to Metro Atlanta, which is home for me, that
No,
is,
really. That's cool. That's
yeah,
really
yeah,
cool. I didn't know that.
we,
That's awesome.
yeah, we can talk about that. We can talk about that. So I understand that. I also know, Mark, that your contemporaries, you're one of five that just recently received promotion to the PGA Tour Americas, and you are inspiring. You all are inspiring a generation of golfers that will impact the sport in ways never seen before. For those of us that are looking up to the Marcus Byrds, but may not be in either the DMV or Metro ATL, what's the message that you give to them? And let me also say this, the podcast is global right now, Marcus. And so there may be people of color who are in their own way isolated in their space. Speak to them about the impact of staying focused, grinding, but working to find a community that will introduce you to a space of comfort and inspiration.
Yeah, man, I think that's obviously the hardest part of this journey. I think I it's so hard to really say. I think I was just super blessed and fortunate to kind of find myself fall into that space with where I grew up and where I was taught. But like I said, man, I think the biggest thing is I had other kids that were my age that looked like me around me. I think it's important that when you're even if you're meeting guys at tournaments of color or you got guys who are a couple miles away or a couple cities over, I think it's important for those parents or whatever community that is to stay in touch, to get those guys together so they can play more. I think, obviously iron sharpens iron, but I think that
Facts.
when you have someone who's from the same circumstances, it's just a lot more relatable. You don't feel like you're
Mhm.
walking on eggshells wherever you are. You don't feel like it's hard for you to fit in. I think that's probably the hardest thing that I see for a lot of young people with color who start the game, who have talent. It's just, they gravitate towards people who look like them and people who who speak like them and what makes them comfortable. And I think that that's kind of the goal, in my opinion, is to try and make this game more comfortable and approachable for all walks of life. And I think that
Well said.
starts with bringing all of those people together and allowing them to be able to, whether that's hosting an event once a month where you get all kids of, all different kinds of minorities together, and they're able to see other people who come from similar backgrounds who might not have, the means to do the same things that other people can do, but they're working together, they're trying to give each other's opportunities, and it's just a more fruitful, a happier environment, a more comfortable environment where they can learn the game. And then that translates to when they go home, and it makes them want to get better for that next time when they see those friends and for that next time that they compete against those guys. I think obviously the most important thing out of this is, regardless of kids making it to the professional level, it's an opportunity to go get an education and get out of whatever environment that they're in and continue to blossom and continue to um change their life and change their families' lives. I think that's where, you know, we kind of need to focus on as far as getting the opportunity for the younger generation.
So to the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, you're accustomed to me saying in every episode, I just say it in every episode, that it's a paperclip moment. And so, what I would hope, whether it's domestically or internationally, that you would really focus on the exchange that Marcus and I just had, more specifically, his answer. Find a way to sponsor a community. It may not be a formal tournament. It may be once a month where a group of people get together and know that that moment is inspiration. Again, representation matters, representation inspires, representation sharpens iron. Let's work to build those communities. And certainly as you continue to get well or better, Marcus's ascension was profound from 7 to 12. At 14, not only did he excel in Maryland, but then he ultimately excelled in Georgia. That was a profound moment as well, where he was playing not just statewide, but domestically, and still building up those communities. Let's make that a part of the child's journey to the extent that they are committed to investing time and repetition in this game. Marcus, thank you for that very, very powerful message. That will be one that likely finds itself in reels post this conversation today. Listen, the period 2020 to 2026, for you, it seemed like an even more powerful period than that 7 to 14 time of your life. Can you talk about, and I think this is important, can you talk about that trend and where you found yourself transitioning from competing to being competitive?
Yeah, I think just like anything else, it comes with experience, right? Like I was a really good junior golfer, a really good amateur golfer, had a really good college career, and then after college there was just no real next step for me at that time, as far as support and kind of what an avenue looked like. And then obviously that was a tough time with COVID, and there were a lot of things in the world that were going on. So I actually wasn't playing golf. I didn't play golf from the end of 2019 all the way up until the summer of 2020. I was working jobs. I was trying to figure out ways to help support my family and kind of just, the real world hits you when you get out of college, that the free money
Mhm.
dries up, the place to stay dries up. It just changes a lot of things. So I knew my passion was always golf, but it just didn't look like that was in the sights for me at that moment in time. And then I actually, what changed everything for me was I got an email. My ranking was still good enough to where I was invited to play in the U.S. Amateur in 2020. And
Okay.
that's when my gears kind of shifted back towards, there's still a chance that I could play golf and continue to pursue it. And so I went back home, caddied in Maryland for a few months, saved as much money as I could to kind of do my uh do my summer circuit. And with the support of my college coach at the time, my first 3 years, and a few other people, my college coach who recruited me, who is now the president of Tennessee Golf Foundation, those two people alone, they changed my life. Not only just coaching me for 4 years, but they gave me the opportunity and put me in the right doors to where I was able to get some support to play professional golf in the fall. And I just knew that, I knew what golf was like when I didn't have it. And I knew what it was like
Hmm.
working. And I knew what it was like. And I just didn't want to, I told myself I wasn't going to miss this opportunity and came out swinging. I think I finished in the top three, my first three events, was able to make a decent amount of money to continue to play the next year. And then, lo and behold, a few other sponsors came along in 2021, and I just put my head down and I kept grinding and just trying to continue to get better, reaching out to other players that I knew who play on the PGA Tour or were playing at the highest level, trying to figure out ways that I continue to grow my game. And I just stayed persistent, stayed focused, stayed steadfast. I didn't want anything, any distractions or anything to take me away from my love, which was playing competitive golf. Transitioning into that, those first years, I got my first win in 2021, which was awesome. And then 2022 was kind of a coming out year for me. I got more comfortable playing professional events, traveling. Had a good group of guys that I traveled with that I felt like made me better. And when I got to the end of 2022, 2023 came along, and that's when the world changed for me. Tiger Woods gave me the exemption to play in the Genesis Invitational, and that opened so many doors. I think I ended up playing in four more PJ events that year. And
Hmm.
what I want people to understand about that was not about, you know, was I good enough to play at that level? Like, sure, the talent was there, but there was so much that I had to learn, and I knew that going into it. And I just told myself I just wanted to be a sponge. I wanted to learn as much as I could. I wanted to be around these guys, like take as much information as I can in and use it to figure out how I can continue to get better. And I genuinely think I wouldn't be the player that I am right now without those starts. So I'm super appreciative of the APGA, the PGA Tour, those people who helped me get in those doors and have those opportunities. That changed my life. And I owe those people the world because that was what took my game to the next level. And looking back on that, that's what though that year of playing those PJ events and traveling and being around those guys was, just as important as my 4 years of college golf. Like it was so eye-opening being around the best players in the world. And from then on, I knew that not only did I belong out there, but that there was room for me to get better. And that's all. If you're a competitor, if you're someone who wants to play at the highest level, that is all you could ever ask for. We tend to get stagnant. We tend to get a little discouraged when we feel like, we're just in the same place every year, every month, or every couple months. And, just knowing that there's a whole nother level of golf that I haven't even seen out of
Yeah.
myself yet. That was really, really cool. And, leading up until now, I've had status every year since 2023 on some tour, whether it was the Korn Ferry Tour or the Americas Tour. And
Hmm.
I just think that that's kind of the product of those opportunities. And, I just want to keep myself with an opportunity to continue to move up and get my tour card, whether that's the Korn Ferry Tour, the PGA Tour, it's important to be in that threshold, in that realm where I can play 4 days of golf and compete against some of the best players in the world. And I think that's, all in all, it's preparing me for when I do get my status back that I don't have to worry about losing it.
Well, community, we are in rhythm. Another answer that is certainly worth a paperclip moment. Marcus talked about a little bit of adversity, which everybody went through during the COVID period. I think he also talked about community. And I'll also say that the answer that he just gave isn't unique to golf and sport. I think there's a piece of this that's easily transferable to life. And so, for our listeners, particularly listeners who listen with your children, I think Marcus's answer right there over 2 to 3 minutes, again, is certainly worth listening to and then having some additional conversation in context, whether it's sport or whether it's life or a combination of both. I think it's also important to put yourself in the spaces where you can be taken to the next level. Tiger Woods provided that to Marcus. Marcus embraced that moment, and to his point, he's not looking back. So a lot of nuggets there. And Marcus, we're here for that journey with you. Right now, you're headed back to the PGA Tour Americas. I think you are. I think you're there actually. So talk to us about the first foray there and this time. Like, what did you learn? What are you embracing about this time? Moments ago, you talked about consistency and not losing that opportunity. What has been put in place so you are 10 toes down and going forward right now?
Yeah, like I said, just getting more comfortable in that environment, having those tour starts, playing a bunch of events out there. I remember in 2024, that's when I first had got Korn Ferry status. And my first start on Korn Ferry was Bogota, Colombia. And I just remember the first week leading up to it, I was terrified. Like I had no idea how I was gonna, never left the country, don't really know, I don't speak Spanish. So it wasn't something that I was super comfortable going to do, especially by myself.
Right.
So, there were a lot of different things going through my head that I just wasn't necessarily too excited about. A lot of
Mm,
people might think, man, you're about to play a Corn Ferry Tour event and it's the highest level up next, right behind the PGA Tour. And it's like, yeah, but, you're stepping out of your comfort zone. You're traveling somewhere for 7 days to a country that you've never been to by yourself, that you don't speak the language. That was very, very different for me. And then to turn around and have to play three more events down there, which I had to go from Colombia to Argentina to Chile. It was just it was definitely an adjustment for me.
mhm,
And fortunately, I realized very quickly that I had some people I grew up with, people I played college golf with, and I was able to lean on them, whether it was just to go grab dinner, whether it was to ask where I should stay,
mhm,
what places are okay for us to be in. Maybe it's to go see it, go to an activity, to go somewhere else and go do something to get your mind off golf. There were
mhm.
so many things that helped that process for me in that light, not just golf. So I think that first year out there really helped a bunch. And then last year playing on PGA Americas and going down there, I already had a pretty decent idea of what it was going to be like. So I was definitely a lot more comfortable. It showed in my game. I played really well down there in South America, those first six events. And it just kind of gradually, the more you do it, obviously you get more comfortable, you figure out a routine. I think that was the biggest thing for me being on the road for 7 days at a time, was figuring out my routine, what to do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, what to do after we play Thursday, Friday, what to do before we play, what to do over the weekend if I miss a cut, or if I play well and I'm playing over the weekend, how do I respond to that? So those were just those all that comes with experience, all that comes with putting yourself in that position numerous times. And I was just super fortunate that I was able to kind of get that out the way earlier in my career. So now getting back to that place and being there, I don't feel as uncomfortable.
Nice. Well, listen, welcome back. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Right? Welcome back. You talked about it earlier, and I want to build on it here. An extremely successful junior career, AD1 golf. You talked about the Korn Ferry. We know your relationship with PGA Americas. We're going to talk a little bit more about the APGA, but also the PGA. As I researched and prepared for our time today, my takeaway of that is you right now are in a really tight bubble, and you are in my opinion, you are 4 days away from exploding from that bubble and really taking off. Aside from the talent, which is undebatable right now, what characteristics and behaviors have matured within you and the game that has you in such a tighter bandwidth and really on the cusp of doing what I believe you want to do?
Yeah, it goes back to what I was saying earlier about having a team. Um
Mm,
when I went and made those starts out there on tour, I realized, being out there, those guys have their mental coaches with them, their putting coaches with them, their swing coaches with them all the time. They have their trainers out there, they have their PT guys. Like it was just seeing all of that just for one person. I was like, geez, like, I've had the same coach for how long and then been working with the same guy. And I'm just like, man, I need to figure out what that was like. So I ended up getting in touch with an amazing person back home in DC who had plenty of connections. And, I told him that I pretty much told him kind of what I needed and what I felt like would make me successful. And he helped me develop that team, man. So now I have a great swing coach, a great mental coach who I worked with for 2 years, have an amazing putting coach, people around me who, I kind of geared myself to where, regardless of the results, like I have people around me who are able to look at stats, to able to look at my progress and be like, hey, I know it's not what it's showing on paper, but this is what we've been wanting to improve on. This is what you're continuing to improve. This is what's going to work on the PGA Tour. This is what's going to work on the Korn Ferry Tour. And those things are important to me. That's why I said having a team is so important because results are up in the air. Results are so much I don't want results to control my narrative or control my idea of how I'm playing or how I feel. And I think having a solid team around me has really changed my outlook on results as well as my process
yeah.
leading up to when I do make it on the PGA Tour.
Yeah. Again, I love that. And oftentimes from the perspective of an athlete, and I can speak from that as well. Your ability to play in the most competitive environments is really the work that's done quietly. And
Absolutely.
for you, it's the mental coach, it's the swing coach, it's your discipline around pulling back from the game, getting yourself ready mentally and physically. And so again, I think this is another really, really important piece for people, whether you're playing golf or you're living life or you're doing both. Balance and kind of controlling your narrative is critically, critically important. Thank you
Absolutely.
for that. We are we are talking a lot, and we've been fortunate. We're probably on a 4 episode run with the APGA. And the APGA really is at the heart of changing and reimagining the landscape of golf. It has given golfers of color a competitive playground, but it's also created this environment where the playground isn't intended for you all to stay in perpetuity. It is intended for you to excel and then somebody's coming behind you. Can you talk about the impact on your ability to compete, your ability to develop, and subsequently your ability to be promoted to PGA Americas or Korn Ferry or PGA Tour? Talk about the APGA's impact on this space that we're in right now.
Yeah, the APGA is what I tell everybody is a great tool to use to get better and to help develop your game. For me specifically, there was never a doubt on, like I said, whether or not I believed I belonged on the PGA Tour or whatever. You know, I played against all these guys growing up in junior golf and college golf. So, in my eyes, the talent was always there. But what really I needed was a place to develop it, a place to play really good golf courses, to be able to compete against other players, to see what it's like to travel and play different places and go to different states and be on it, living out of a suitcase, being on an airplane all the time. That stuff was super monumental in how my game translated to how it would be on the road. And so the APGA, with the support of them, and like I said, they play amazing golf courses. They have great people running their events. They have great people sponsoring their events. Between Cisco, between Billy Horschel. There's so many names behind the scenes that have impacted their program and what they're trying to do in this golf space. That it made me feel just like more at home. Like I said, like I had a good group of guys out there that I traveled with week to week. We pushed each other, we competed with each other, did our best to make each other better. And that was the beauty of playing on the APGA Tour for the years that I did, and just giving myself more and more time to completely develop my golf game. And that's all I really cared about was how my game translates in the competition. The stuff that I'm working on is going to work in competition. All of those things are so important for when it comes to
Mm.
me playing professional golf. And the APGA does a great job of that.
Yeah, that's good. And listen, shout out to Billy Horschel, Billy Ho. We know that his legacy is very obvious on the PGA Tour. He's a multi winner on the tour. He's won globally as well, but he has been a tremendous advocate for the APGA. Probably some very obvious ways and less obvious ones. So I think it was more than appropriate for his name to be called out. Thank you for doing that. Listen, as we close this out, and we talked earlier about this generation that's right behind you. If there was any message, Marcus, that you would leave them, particularly as their game is growing, as a former basketball player, people would get excited when they see you in competition doing some of the things that you would ultimately do instinctively on the court, but nobody was ever with you when you weren't in competition and having to build those reps and do things that were less flashy. From a golfer's perspective, what would you say to this generation that they should be doing and not get tired of doing because it's less flashy?
If you're a young kid, don't focus on the results. Get a good team, get a good coach. Parents, be supportive. Don't always focus on the things that your kid's not doing. Focus on the things that he is doing well. Put yourself in a good position where your kid can continue to develop, and don't be so results based. Get a plan, whether it's your coach building a plan for you. Have small short-term goals that you need to accomplish, whether it's in your chipping, whether it's in your swing, whether it's mental goals. Focus on those things, and over time, the results will speak for themselves. Like I just think about all the great players. They all continue to develop their game. They all were working hard on their game at home. And, a lot of the best players that we see in the world right now got opportunities to play on the PGA Tour when they were in high school. And that wasn't because they were already, a lot of those guys were really good. Those guys did go on and make cuts out there, but it wasn't for them to go out there and try to win. It was for them to go out there and to learn and to figure out where their game stacks up and how they can continue to develop and get to that level. And yeah, we might not have the opportunity to do that, but there's a lot of light in that situation. Figure out ways that you can continue to get better. Figure out ways that you can focus on your game and pay attention to what you see some of the best players in the world doing. And just do that every day, day in and day out, whether it's for a little bit of time, a lot of time, whatever it is. Everything needs to be purposeful. Everything needs to have some sort of direction or some sort of push in that direction that you feel like you're wanting to get to. And I think if you do that, the results will take care of itself. Maybe it's in a year, maybe it's in 2 years, maybe it's in 3 years, maybe it's not until at college or after college. But if you have the right people around you and you know that you're doing the things that you're supposed to, it's only a matter of time. It's never a matter of if, it's only a matter of when.
Well, that's the exclamation point. So, just one final critical, important piece: suits, New York or LA?
Suits New York, man. New York, I'm an East Coast guy. I'm gonna have to stick with that. And just the East Coast does it a little bit tougher, man. We're a little more suited for the rough stuff. LA, they got the palm trees, the beaches, the Sunset Boulevard, all that good stuff, man. Everybody knows about the Bronx. Everybody knows about what's going on in New York, man. I think it's a little bit tougher over there. So I'm gonna go Suits New York.
That was the only answer that mattered. I was waiting. I was waiting. I was waiting.
Yeah, sir.
I share that with you. Well,
Yes.
listen to the Tee to Green Golf podcast community. We've had an amazing time with Marcus Byrd, member of the APGA Tour, member of PGA Tour Americas. We just believe that he is going to be 10 toes down sooner than later on the PGA Tour and playing all over because we are beyond grateful. This was a wonderful conversation. Please know that the door to the Tee to Green Golf podcast is always open. So we'll continue to follow you and invite you back. We see that you are out on the course, grinding, doing some of the things that you will and have impressed upon this next generation of golfers that will listen to this episode that aspire to be the next Marcus Byrd. And again, we are grateful for you. We look forward to following you, staying in touch with you. To the Tee to Green Golf podcast community, as we always say, it's straight from Tee to Green. We are out.